rookie reloader here with the Loadmaster. Right out of the box, we had a little problem with the primer pin lifter. It would not come up through that space in the shell plate. So the index was off, and I sent Lee some pictures, and they really didn't help me too much. But to resolve the issue, here's what I did. So I located this little stop right here. And by filing that down just a little bit at a time, I was able to cause the shell plate to rotate just a little bit more. And that allowed this thing to clear and come up. So prior to figuring that out, I had a bunch of tipped primers and all kinds of issues, a lot of smashed primers, and I had to take this thing off a million times, the shell plate. So check that out. You can usually see it from up here pretty easily through this hole. You can look down and see that, whether it's perfectly centered or not. Other modifications I have made, which have been very helpful. Let's see, the shield, that's a pretty basic one, but it's in the way if you put it on as it comes out of the box. This will hit, the primer tray will hit this. So I just very carefully enlarged this hole, took it off and just filed it out. And now it's, you can orient it so it clears and there's no interference here between these two things. Let's see. This is called the auto disc, and the powder through die over here. So a lot of people have problems, and I had some problems with powder leaking out. And what I ended up doing was I disassembled this, and I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and there's a gentleman that shows you how to flatten this surface and also flatten the surface of the disc itself with all the holes in it. Basically, you use a nice flat grinding stone, and you go right over top of it. I use these diamond plate stones, and I was able to machine those a little more so they're flat, because they were not flat. If you check them with a square, you're going to find that those surfaces were not flat. So by flattening them out, I think that helped the cause a little bit. I still had some leaking. And then I really got in there and looked real careful with a magnifying glass to see what was going on. And you can kind of see the little gap over here. Let's see, right in here. If you look in carefully, you see there's a little round, like a washer which seals between here and here. And if that's not sitting nice and square and flat on top of the disc, you get leakage. So what I ended up having to do was I would tighten this knob first, because I noticed all the powder was leaking from this side. So I tighten this knob first, bring it down nice and tight, take a look in there with a magnifying glass, and you can see it's sitting flat, and look for light coming through. Over here, it was really never an issue, so I tightened this one up last. It seems to have helped quite a bit. So if you're leaking powder, machine the surfaces and, really looking at it carefully to see where those gaps are can help save you some powder and a big mess, because it gets messy after a while. I saw a lot of people having trouble with this thing, This is supposed to be the improved version. And they were complaining that leaked as well. All right, so we got the fix there, we got the fix there, we got the fix there. Lubrication. Some people will tell you do not need to lube because you're using carbide dyes. I tried it without the lube. I tried it with the lube. With the lube is way easier. The press works a lot more smoothly. So the question becomes, which lube should you use? Well, I tried both of these. First, I tried the cheap one, and it does a nice job lubing, the Imperial, but it takes a lot of time because you're going to do one at a time. And when you use the Imperial, you got to do a lot more cleaning on these dyes, periodic cleaning, because they get all gummed up with the lube. So that's the drawback to the Imperial. It does work, but it's a little messier, more maintenance, and it's a lot slower. This stuff, if you look at the videos for One Shot, you'll find a lot of people using the One Shot, and it's great. I have to be honest with you. I use it with these like cookie trays. I put some paper towels down. I line up all the casings. Here's some that I recently did. And you spray them once or twice at the right angle, and this stuff works great. So after it's dry, you got a lot less mess in your dyes. You know, you should still clean them periodically, but you don't have to clean them as frequently as you would with the Imperial. Pick yourself up some graphite. You're gonna need this because any other lube that you're using is gonna create just more of a mess. So I use the graphite, particularly on some of these surfaces, on this surface here. When you go to lift this up, I'll bring this down. Okay. And send that over. So when all this starts to move around, you want these moving surfaces to have some little bit of lube on them. This stuff works great, and you don't get all the mess. Now on the part down here, this main, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of this, but whatever that column is there, that cylinder, they recommend motor oil, I think. I've been using some CLP on there, but that's really the only wet lube place I've been wet lubing. But the graphite, in my opinion, is the better option. Let's see, what else did we run? Oh, this little thing here. This is kind of silly, but believe it or not, these things were kicking out, and my completed rounds were going onto the ground, so that was just annoying. Seems to have helped. Let's see. Oh, the stand. So the stand itself, I highly recommend this because before I got the stand, I had it over on the bench, and it just wasn't stable enough. This really does the job. I've seen a lot of people modifying their benches and trying to figure out ways to stabilize the press, because once you have any kind of flex in here, it creates issues. So you want this to be nice and stable. The stand works great. Put your cement bricks down there, and it's great because you free up space on your bench for all your other stuff, and you have your little work area here. It's also portable, so that's a bonus. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. So being really patient and trying not to go fast is, in my opinion, definitely the way to go, because once you start going fast as a beginner, I think, I don't know how many times I had to stop and take this thing apart, and it got to be really frustrating. So if you're going nice and slow and you're patient, You're checking your charges to make sure you're weighing everything, to make sure it's accurate and it's safe. That's my recommendation. So I've given up going for speed. I have no interest in cranking out thousands and thousands of rounds. I just want to create, a decent number of rounds, and I want them to be safe to use. That's my main goal. If I end up getting quicker, in a couple of years or whatever, then fine, as long as I'm still being safe. So right now I'm in the middle of doing some 357, and I've got some accurate number 2. And let's see, the charge is around a 7.3. You want to pick yourself up a good scale. So let's see. Right now I've got a couple of rounds in there. Let's go ahead and cycle this. And bring this up. And again, nice and easy. I'm not looking to do anything crazy. I've got this retainer kind of positioned out so that I can remove this and check to see, I'm getting proper charge. You can check your primer. Make sure that's in there correctly. All right, and put this on my scale. 0. All right, I like to check it again. 0. Okay, go ahead and put it in. And getting the hang of this little stroke here where it wants to bind up, and getting a feel for the press is pretty important. So I'm not going to go all the way because I'm going to pull this out of here, and I'm going to measure this. Should be around 7.3. Nice. Okay, 7.3. So I do this a lot. I know guys will just do it 5 or 6 times and then, they'll be happy. Well, I check them, once every 20 or 30 rounds. I end up checking the weights because I've read a lot of horror stories on undercharging and overcharging, and I just, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So let's go ahead and we'll forward this. Okay. And that kicks out quite a bit when you don't have that retainer in place. Oh, by the way, when you open this retainer, if you open it too far, this end ends up going, and let's see if I can show you this. This end here ends up sliding into the shell plate, and it jams it. So if you pull this too far, that's what happens. And all of a sudden you'll be like, why isn't the press moving? Because you open this up too far, and that's hitting the shell plate, and it's locking up your press. So keep that in mind. Did that once. I don't think I'll ever do that again. Let's see. What else have I? Oh, when you forget to put the bullet on, that causes a big problem. So I do that. I check that incessantly. I'm checking the weights incessantly. I'm checking, I got a bullet on there incessantly. And now I can go ahead and seat my bullet. All right, and let's go ahead and advance this. All right. So again, let me put a bullet right on there. Now, when I went to set this up initially, I forget the name of this too. Boy, what an amateur. So this holder here, this die holder, when I went to set this up initially, this was a little tricky. I followed the directions here in the instructions that came with the 357 die set, and it didn't work. My cases were buckling, and I had all kinds of problems. So I went and watched this help video. The Lubrication website has some really good help videos. The help video on setting this up, the bullet seating die is what ended up saving me and allowing this to work pretty well. Like I said, I've loaded about 1,000 rounds of this 357 so far, and a couple thousand of the 9mm. So that was the help videos are just that. They're very helpful on Leap Precision, and as well as other YouTube videos that people have made. I really appreciate all the help I've gotten. That's why I'm making this video. Let's see. What else can I offer? Hopefully save somebody a headache with. We talked about the powder. Oh, the auto disc thing. Yeah. So these all have numbers, these holes, and they're supposed to correspond with, the proper charge. I'm not finding them to be totally accurate. So I'm using a 0.76 on here, and it says I should be using a 0.66. Well, I don't know what to say about that, but as long as you're checking it with the scale, you should be fine. So I'm finding these holes to be, I'm having to use a larger size than what it says here. What's frustrating about this whole enterprise of reloading is the availability of, bullets. What bullets can you get? What powders can you get? What's available? And that whole part of it has been frustrating. The load data, trying to find, good load data with what you have to work with is an extreme challenge. So that's still kind of amazing to me that there's, I understand there's a shortage of all these supplies, but it's just weird. It's like, okay, I'm going to load 357 with accurate number 2, but then let's say I want to load 38 special. Well, with the same bullet I was using, it doesn't list the powder, that was listed over here. For 357, it's not listed over here. So you can end up doing a lot of research trying to find good load data. And I know a lot of people use the books, the Lyman book, and that's great. But I think the shortage of supplies has really made this problem even more challenging than it needs to be. So you got to work with what's available. These are Berry bullets, copper plated, and I was able to find some accurate number 2, so I was able to load 357. Okay, well, I guess that's all I have for now, and I hope you found this to be helpful. Good luck, and just be patient, and keep going slow and double checking everything. And eventually, it actually becomes a fun hobby. So that's all for now.